Welcome to another episode of Welcome to the Sandbox Live. We are here in Monterey, California, celebrating 65 years of Monterey Jazz Festival. And I am so excited because my guest today, we are here performing with the Monterey Jazz Festival on tour. And I absolutely love this human being, this artist. He's amazing. I've been a fan of his forever. And I'm so excited to be making music with him. Please welcome the one and only Kurt Elling. What's going on, buddy?
Man, you're too kind. I'm happy to see you. I'm glad we got to make that set happen last night. And I'm looking forward to the tour we're going to do.
Absolutely.
And I'm looking for, I've been investigating a lot of Christian's compositions with the possibility of writing lyrics to them and maybe working on some arrangements beyond the arrangements he's already made of them. Putting in an extra bar here, maybe a spoken word thing here, some more lyrics over here, so that when we go out on the road, we're creating.
Absolutely.
And not just reiterating.
Right.
To me, the Monterey Jazz Festival on tour is an opportunity to try to collaborate with people I haven't gotten to collaborate with before, and to try to get new things happening, because that's as heavy a part of the whole jazz experience for me as any other portion of it. I'm trying to learn stuff. I'm always just trying to learn what's next, what I don't know yet.
Yeah.
So I'm real proud to have an association with you now, Christian.
Absolutely, man. I feel the same way. I'm so excited. Last night's performance was so much fun. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, we had a good time.
Yeah. I think the audience enjoyed it.
We didn't go over.
We did not. I was worried about it. I was like, I think we're gonna go. And we actually had 5 minutes left.
Right in the pocket.
Yeah.
It was just right, what the people needed.
Yeah.
It seemed like they had a good time. I think the set had a really good shape.
Yeah.
Dee Dee, of course, scalded everybody with her majestic inferno abilities.
Absolutely.
And Lakeisha, I don't know how many people have been hip to Lakeisha in the past, but she is a natural-born star of the music, and she's just gonna rock it into everything that's beautiful and good about what we do.
Yeah, no, I had so much fun last night, just putting the music together, and also just not even just writing for you and Dee Dee and Lakeisha, but also collaborating with you. I mean, we were, for a couple months just going back and forth with voice memos and like, hey, I'm thinking about this, and it was such a great process to do with you. And I love the ability to collaborate and create with you, and I love how you are just so open with doing that. It's such a beautiful thing, because I know a lot of artists get a little particular, but I love working with you. You make it so easy, man.
I try to keep all my particular, what would you call it? Any kind of negative thing that could be happening, I'm keeping that up here.
Absolutely.
Because that's not a good part of the process.
Absolutely.
You got to say yes to things. And like I say, since I want to learn things, you might, as far as I'm concerned, the best idea wins.
Absolutely.
Best idea
100%.
wins. Doesn't matter where it came, whatever.
Absolutely.
Maybe I have none of the best ideas this time.
Yeah.
That's happened. Just ask my wife. Almost all the time. The best ideas are not mine.
Told you this is going to be a great interview. So I love the project that you do with Butcher Brown. I did a high school program, the Grammy Band, Gibson Baldwin Grammy Ensemble, with Corey Fonville. So I've known him since then. And so we've always talked about making music together, and we've always talked about people we loved. And I remember back then he was like, Kurt Elling is so dope. And I was like, and so we kind of talked about it and put it into the ether back then. So the fact that it's happening now is so cool.
I'm very happy to have a new project and a new direction.
Yeah.
There's so many arenas of musical exploration that I'll never get a chance to be a part of. I saw Maritza's picture on the ads for the thing at like to sing fado, and come out with and to really lay that on people. That's just one example of the incredible kaleidoscopic possibilities in the music.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I'm whatever, 25, almost 26, 27 years into being out here, thank heavens. And, you know, I've done a lot of stuff in acoustic music and swinging stuff and everything. And COVID came, and everybody's losing their minds, and I'm losing my mind. And I needed to have some joy up in there.
Yeah.
And to be able to connect with Charlie Hunter, who's my principal collaborator on SuperBlue, and to be able to get into writing and to be in the studio and record, even though we couldn't be even in the same state with each other.
Right.
You know, I made the whole record with Charlie and Corey Fonville playing drums and DJ Harrison playing keyboards, and I had never met DJ, and the whole record was mastered and turned in. And I had met Corey apparently 100 years ago,
right.
You know, for 5 minutes someplace. And it wasn't until the record was completely done that we ever got to do a live thing together.
Wow. Okay.
And it was just, you know, completely finished and everything. So that's an interesting new way to have a process.
Yeah, absolutely.
That I wouldn't have imagined, and it got me away from the bourbon for a while.
There you go. Right. Which is important. Which
You know,
is what we
over
need, you know what I'm
COVID,
saying?
you know, the survival
was tough.
tendencies are either positive or they're negative.
Right,
And I was
absolutely.
not a very positive COVID experience.
Right.
So to have Charlie and them cats present me with this possibility to be on the positive tip and to make a new thing happen and to feel regenerated about that is a real gift to me.
That's beautiful.
And now I get to go out and hit with them and sing real loud on every number and jump around and act like a kid, which is about as much fun as I can imagine.
Absolutely. You can't ask for anything else, right? Oh, that's beautiful. So as you were growing and you're gaining all this experience with music and art and everything that you're experiencing, were you exposed to or wanted to see certain collaborations growing up? Like, was there a certain band that you were like, oh, I can't wait to see this band and this band get together? Just like right now with you and the group that you're playing with.
Growing up, give me an age.
Well, say when you were a teenager, right?
When I was a teenager, it was really I wasn't really even 100%. How can I say? I was really doing a lot of classical, you know, in the classical world. I mean, my father was a church musician for Lutheran people, and that meant that he played the pipe organ.
Right.
I was learning Bach's chorales.
Yeah.
And I was doing the Bach motets, and you know, for years I would sing, you know, the soprano line, and then my voice went down, and I was singing the alto line, and, you know.
Right. Moved on down the line there.
So I just had really a glancing acquaintance with jazz music, and I had seen, you know, like Tony Bennett on PBS as a kid.
Yeah.
And I remember saying, you know, he came on. There was one recording I remember, and it was, you know, live from Lake Tahoe. It was like the Woody Herman band.
Yeah.
And all them cats had on, you know, black dinner suits.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, yeah, ooh, that looks elegant. That's a real, ooh, that sounds good. And now, Mr. Tony, and he came on a white dinner jacket.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's the guy you want to be.
That's right. That's
the guy you want to be. And he came out with that beautiful smile and that. I'm like, oh my. So little pieces of things like that, little seeds planted along the way. But I didn't have enough acquaintance in that area to say, oh, I'd love to hear this guy with this guy. I was still like, who's this guy? And then when I was, when I made some progress in life, and I was in college, and then I really started to get turned on to a lot of stuff because a couple of cats down the hall had Dexter Gordon and Herbie, and they had all the real information. Yeah. And then I started to really say, wow, well, look at this. There's a whole world right here. So started to do it, you know, the beginnings of a deep dive at that point. Yeah. But even then it was, you know, and a handful of years into it, you know, when I discovered Jon Hendricks and Lambert and Henderson Ross and everything that they were doing, I still hadn't discovered, you know, Horace Silver. Okay. So I heard doodling from them. Right. And then I heard, and oh, wait a minute, ooh. And
Yeah.
then you realize what the antecedents are. Then you start looking on the dates of the records and
Right.
trying to put the thing together.
Dig that. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like today where, you have a lot of sampling, and people are listening to all these records
Yeah.
and like, oh yeah, or like, Jay Dilla, and we're like, okay, this is really dope and whatever. But like, who is this playing on? And you
Right.
find out that, oh, this comes from Ahmad Jamal. This
Right.
comes from this comes
Right.
from that.
Well, and then you want to go back and you say, wow, well, if that's
Right.
let me listen to that
Right.
experience.
Right. Oh, that's beautiful. So what I love about that story is that you're coming from, like you said, you came from the classical side of it, and you're coming from the Lutheran Church, and you're kind of streamlining into this brand new place of just exploration. Because whenever I hear you sing, and when I'm playing with you, that's what I get from you. It's exploration, and I love that. And I love the fact that you are very, your sound cuts. Me and Lakeisha were talking about this a couple days ago, where we're so excited because every time we hear you sing, it's so precise and it's so, the tone of it is so beautiful. And I love how you are able to connect with the audience. That was one thing I really noticed about watching your shows, and especially getting ready for this interview. Just really taking a look at how you deliver the message. Now, does that come from growing up in the church, or does that come from different experiences, or is that just who you've always been this entire time?
Well, thank you. That's a lot of nice compliments in a short amount of time.
You're welcome.
I mean, first of all, I'm really trying to sing in tune.
Hey, okay. Yeah, number one. Number one.
Nobody wants to hear any message you've got if you can't do that.
Right.
And that's at a premium. And I definitely, when I listen back to,
Yeah.
definitely am not making the grade. So that's a lifelong discipline
Yeah. Yes.
to technically play as well as your imagination indicates you could do.
Yeah. Who was your sort of North Star for you as a vocalist, as an artist? Somebody that you kind of like.
You mean in terms of stylistic things, or
not
in
even
terms
stylistic
of technique,
things, but just
or in terms of
technique, stylistic?
I'm not sure that. I mean to say this in
Absolutely.
in the humblest way. I mean, there's an ideal figure who I'm not sure exists. Different jazz singers who have preceded us.
Yes.
Each of them contributed unique gifts.
Absolutely.
Nobody is ever gonna throw down the blues in a jazz idiom
Yeah.
like Joe Williams,
Yes.
with that sound of his,
Yes.
with the compositional sense and the emotional impact and the just thrill of him being in that moment.
Yeah.
The largeness of the sound.
Yeah.
Nobody, and then you have a John Hendricks, the aforementioned, who is going to be as witty as
Right.
that, as a lyricist?
Right.
Who is going to measure? But all of these are examples of what's possible for the
Absolutely.
jazz singer.
Absolutely.
Sinatra coming on with that swagger and just laying it down,
Yeah,
or
and pocket. Ooh.
Shirley Horn speaking
Yeah.
a pocket,
Yeah.
singing and playing and delivering with such incredible nuance.
Yeah.
And what's the right way to say, all declarative sentences
Yes. Oh yeah.
in the way that
Yeah.
it is,
Yeah.
and no fat on the bone,
Yeah.
just. So each singer comes along and they, Carmen McRae and that acerbic
Yeah.
delivery and the knife
Yeah.
that she's holding to the audience in case they don't check it out or
Right,
whatever, you know?
right.
Like, that's a gift too.
Yeah.
So all of these players, all of these great singers, each one of them brings a unique thing. And as you know, as anybody can, it's much easier to tell usually one singer apart from another, versus one piano player
Right,
from another,
right.
or in a continuum,
Right.
because the voice is usually so distinctive.
Yeah.
So, that having been said, I've tried to do a deep dive to really codify for myself what it is that's each singer's gift, and to learn as much as I can from there, and to at least attempt to digest that in my own playing, so that when a certain kind of a thing comes around on a set and it gets into a bluesish space, then the Joe Williams part wants to turn on.
Absolutely.
And,
Absolutely.
you know, or the Carmen McRae part wants to turn on.
Right,
And you
right.
want to do that in such a way that it is still, that it's obviously you, that you've digested it so much that it is organic to you,
Absolutely.
and that it's natural and native, but that the reference points are clear to anybody, you know, a student who would want to do an analysis and break
Right,
it apart and
right.
say, and that would be, I'm sure that would be true whether you think of it consciously or not. Ahmad Jamal's stuff is that somebody will be able to sit out
Right.
there and say, he's listened to Ahmad.
Right.
He's listened to OP. And you want that from your audience, because that proves that you respect the music as much as they respect the music.
Absolutely.
I'm not just up here making stuff up without the basis of it. What makes it a part of the family tree of this music is that I sound a little like Uncle Joe. And that's something that you want.
Right.
You're still you.
Right.
But for somebody to come up and say, I hear what you've been listening to. You've got a little bit of so-and-so in there. Yeah, well, thank you. I'm glad you hear that, because I worked really hard to get that in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
All of that having been said, there is still a kind of platonic ideal of what's possible on a given instrument from somebody's viewpoint. And being in tune, singing with force, being able to deliver a message that's more complicated maybe than what happens in other arenas of music, or perhaps more subtle, or certainly, you know, from the idiom. That's a lifelong discipline and endeavor that you've got, I at least have got to keep, you know, drilling down ever deeper. And it's incremental, as you know. You don't start being able to sit down to the piano and rifle off all this. You start from a C major chord, and you put your hands in the right place in the stance, and it's incremental.
Absolutely.
And the next day you revisit it, and you revisit it, and you revisit it. And that's true of every gig that I'm on. There's always some element that I can learn from and that I could do better next time for the next audience.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Did that answer your question?
It did. It did. And also the next 5 questions that I had. So that's perfect. Let's talk about the art form vocalise, right?
Okay.
Yes, because you are such a master at that. How did you come upon that? How did you? What?
Well, John
drove
Hendricks,
you to do it? Yeah.
you know, let's see.
Because it's
One
really
of the
tough.
reasons. One of the reasons that I didn't. How can I say? I really started to attempt to learn the music in the deepest possible way fairly late in my biological life. Most of the jazz musicians that I encounter, and I think that people encounter, you fall in love with it really early, or at least you fall in love with the instrument really early, and because you have to, because you won't, your brain and your body won't develop if you don't start early enough.
Right.
It's like if you're going to be a champion basketball player, you better get on it when you're 5 years old or 6 years old, or as a rule. So I was always interested in singing because it made me feel so good.
Yeah.
Because it was in the church, I had innate, but I had a very early and organic exposure to what music feels like at its most directed toward healing and toward uplift and toward drawing everybody together and toward exhilaration and the opening of the soul.
Yeah.
So even if you're not thinking about that stuff consciously, it just feels great to sing. Your body vibrates.
Yeah.
You're many times when you're a kid, you're doing it in a choir.
Yeah.
So it's all your pals.
Yeah.
You're breathing together as human beings, literally breathing together.
Yeah.
You're engaged in a common endeavor that is spiritual, intellectual, technical, physical, all these things.
Yeah.
And I had to, in my own case, I had to explore a lot of philosophical, theological things in order to satisfy myself that I had a little bit of a grip on how life was going to operate.
Yeah.
When you're young, you think you're actually going to figure some things out about the meaning of life.
Yes.
You
think you figured it out.
I never thought
Really?
I figured it out.
Okay,
I thought it was
wow.
possible.
Okay, yeah.
I thought it was possible because, you know, when you're in a certain kind of a churchly environment,
Yeah.
then people are telling you that they figured it out.
Right, right.
And that it's been laid on the line,
And here it
this is what it means.
Right.
And as soon as you start to pick at the seams of that a little bit out of inevitable human curiosity and a very natural inquisitive aspect of being alive,
Yeah.
if you keep doing that
Yeah.
piece at a time, it's gonna
Yeah.
become a different pattern, and it's gonna become a different shape, and it's
Absolutely.
gonna have a different trajectory. So I was in divinity school for 3 years trying to read, you know, dead German guys. And, you know, I really, really wrestled with it because I wanted to have at least a map
Yeah.
of how did we get here? How do we have these opinions? How do we have these beliefs? Where are we coming from? And who was this? Again, the best idea wins. Who's cat who really figured this out? And for me to know that, I got to know what a lot of cats thought about this. You can't just be like, that's the guy and that's it.
Right.
So because of that, and everything else that we've been talking about, this gets me to your question. So vocalise, when you investigate what Jon Hendricks was able to do, and what Eddie Jefferson was able to do, and Annie Ross was able to do, and when I asked Sheila Jordan,
Yes.
I say, Sheila, you know, were you guys doing all this stuff? Were you know, she said, well, everybody was putting words to Charlie Parker's music.
Right.
Everybody wanted to sing what Charlie Parker sounded like. All these high school kids were doing it. It was a big fad. Everybody, really?
Wow. Yeah.
Right? That's what I
Wow.
said. So for me, it became a perfect marriage when I figured out when I had that moment, that eureka moment of, oh, this came from an instrumental outing, and he wrote a lyric to this solo, and that gave him the freedom, the ability, the creative doorway
Right.
to explore this funny, hip, witty, thematic story
Yeah.
in a way that rhymes over this incredible swinging music that how could you not love it and and how could you not want to sing that line or lines like it?
Yeah.
As soon as I figured, then it was like, holy moly, that means I could take this solo I've been listening to all week long that I want to learn anyway, and I could write a lyric for that thing.
Yeah.
Well, I got stuff to talk about there. And that's what opened the door. So, I feel like my endeavor is, as a lyricist, is to follow up on the possibilities, thematic possibilities, to investigate from my little humble standpoint, well, what does it feel like to, as with any lyricist or any composer, what does it sound like now?
Yeah.
What does my heart sound like? What does my experience with this person sound like? What does this heartbreak sound like? What do my anxieties sound like? What does the world sound like?
Yeah.
And that's what comes in, that's what your music creates.
Absolutely.
That's what a composer creates, is we're answering the question, what does it sound like right now?
So
What's
now,
the state of the art? Well, the same thing with lyrics.
How do you know when you're done, right? Because especially with lyrics, I mean, I know as just writing changes and melody and rhythm and all that, and you get to a place where I'm like, I like this, and then you step away from it, you come back to it, and you're like, I kind of want to add this or take this away or whatever. I mean, with my music, I do that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So with you, especially with lyrics that people know now, like, how does that affect how you feel about what you've written? Do you change it ever? Does it
Sure, I
evolve,
change
you
it,
know?
because sometimes, I mean, you try to get smarter, and if you're trying to get smarter, then you look back over your shoulder and you're like, I was not as smart as I could have been when I wrote that.
Yeah.
usually I don't take whole swaths of a thing, but a word here, sometimes I just couldn't find, like, what is the word?
Yeah.
And you're just limited by yourself.
Yeah,
You're limited
yeah.
by yourself.
Yeah.
And try as hard as you might. I'm open to a change, but once it's recorded, that's when I feel like, well,
It is what it is.
there it is.
Yeah.
You know, if I do another recording of a thing and I figured something else, then fine, then
Yeah.
I'll change that.
Yeah.
But then I got to be like, oh well,
Yeah.
there it goes. In the printed version, I can change it.
Yeah.
And then, again, best idea wins. Vince Mendoza wrote me the other day. God bless him.
Yes.
And it turns out Diane Reeves is recording with Metropole, one of my. And first of all, I'm like, well, God damn, I'm okay now. Hello to you, sunshine.
Right.
And then, but he wrote specifically, and he's like, so what's this? Is this one word this or this? And I had to write him back, and I'm like, you know what? Actually, I wrote this, but a couple of other people said they recorded it as this.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a better word.
Right. I mean, again, the best choice.
Best idea wins.
Best
Maybe
idea wins.
maybe they're right to
Yeah.
sing that. I tell you what, whatever Diane sings is gonna be
It's
fine.
gonna be right. We can all agree.
It's gonna be fine.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I love that. You know, I love how you're just so open with all of this. And you know, and I mean, we've known each other for quite some time now because we had our first interaction necessarily in Havana for the International
right,
Jazz
Havana.
Day. And I remember because I'm such a fan of yours. I remember we met in the lobby of the Hotel Nacional, right? And I think you were like, hey, I'm gonna go grab some lunch. Do you wanna go? And I was like,
Oh, please.
me?
Come
and you
on.
were like, yeah, let's go to lunch. And I remember we walked around Havana, and it was such a amazing, first of all, just walking in Cuba.
That was killing.
That was killing in itself. But then also just talking about the stories and talking about you and talking about you being a father and all that. So can we briefly well, first of all, you're a great dad. Great dad. All the stories you tell me, all the pictures you show me of your kids, like amazing dad.
I'm trying real hard.
Yeah.
That's all we can do.
Can we talk about just being an artist and being a father and like, what's the balance there?
I haven't found it yet.
Okay.
It's a beautiful challenge.
Yeah.
That I wish in my temperament I embraced with more grace and less irritation.
It's kindly said. Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah.
I walk around, I have a natural friction already. If I hadn't had kids, I would be a conflicted person. I have kids, I'm still a conflicted person.
Okay.
When I'm on the road and
Yeah.
I'm away from them,
Yeah.
I want to get back to them. When I'm with them and I'm there and everything's beautiful and I have that in the back. I'm like, I got to get out, I got to get out, I got to get out, I
Right.
got to get out. And it's not like I got to get out and away.
Right.
I got to get out and do my thing.
Yeah.
My ideal world is which is not going to happen. My ideal world is I got one of them swanky tour buses.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we drive,
Yeah.
and the family's in the bus,
Yeah.
and we're cool, and everybody's mellow, and then I can just step off the bus and go to work. And I can do my gig, and I can come back and kiss honey, good evening,
Yeah.
and whatever, and make sure the kids are tucked in,
Yeah.
and the nanny or whatever takes them to breakfast so I can sleep, all these things that are
Ideal world. Yes.
ideal world.
Yes, absolutely.
That my ideal world is my family is around me,
Yeah.
and I can do my thing.
Right.
And that's not going to happen. So that's a reality. So that's
Yeah.
why I say, because whose life, I mean, come on, whose life isn't filled with oppositional instincts
Yeah.
and trials and,
Yeah.
I mean, that's the human life, is that we are beset with challenges and we have to decide in our essence how we're going to accept that,
Yeah.
or get mad,
Right.
or booze it up, or whatever whatever thing you're going to do to cope
Yeah.
with that set of things. So that's why I say I'm trying really hard to overcome myself.
Yes. Yes.
And it's and it's not just to be out on the road. It's I'm trying to write such and such a thing. I've got a deadline coming up, and I am never opposed to Junior coming. Papa, can you? Then I set it down.
Yeah.
And I say, yes, I can.
Yeah.
And I da-da-da. And then that's it, because he's going to be in bed by 8:30, because he's only 6, and I'll try to wake up again
Right. Right.
after I read him those stories. And
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I'm trying.
Yeah, but that's a beautiful thing. I mean, because a lot of times we don't ever get the chance to hear artists talk about the other side of the art, the other side of just the human side of what we present. And it's such a great thing to talk about because it's important. We all are dealing with that. I mean, I don't have any kids, but I want to one day. And so part of this question is also for me to be like, okay, so what does Kurt do? Because I know how busy you are, and I know how creative and how you have this space that you live in, and you're traveling all the
It's
time
just,
and all
man,
that,
and it's an imperfect, I shouldn't say it's an imperfect world. We often experience the world as imperfect.
Yeah.
Best thing, you're not asking me for advice.
This is for everybody. Come on.
You got to choose the right partner. You and I live in a strange way in the world.
Yes.
That many potential partners are not going to hang with this.
Yeah.
Or they'll see whatever they figure is the glamorous side, and they won't be ready to kick it at home while you're gone for X months a year, and they won't be willing to give you that space, and they're going to want what they want. And that's justified if that's what they want, and you agree to that. But you have a life out here on the road.
Yeah.
This is not just a job, this is your vocation. This is your gift back to life, to be Christian Sands, to play the music that you play, to play the music that you write,
Absolutely.
to interact, to collaborate. So anybody who you're gonna ultimately pair up with, they need to be strong enough in themselves,
Yeah.
industrious, creative, satisfied with their lot, patient, tolerant, highly intelligent, and ready to stand up to it with some backbone.
Absolutely.
And to understand from Jump Street, this is what they're buying into.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because when you're going to be gone, it's going to be on them. My wife closed on our new apartment. Day after I came out on the road, she went and did the paperwork and signed the thing and had this and sent me a picture.
Yep. Yep.
And today she's driving them around to this and that, and she's starting her master's degree this fall.
Yeah.
Because she's just going to do it all.
Yeah.
Which is exhausting to even think of. But I 110%, I try to bow to her on every occasion.
Yeah.
Because for me to have a family at all is possible because of her.
Come on.
It's possible because of her, because she knew what she was in for, and she continues to accept it, and somehow continues to forgive me most of the time for my ridiculous actions and my unbelievable lack of sense.
Yes.
'Tis true. Be careful before you say, will you please?
Yes.
And she's going to say, I do. Because once they say, I do, then it's on.
Kurt Elling, everybody.
Christian Sands.
That is a wrap.